Hello and welcome to our 58th Help Save Our World online speakers meeting, where we are changing the conversation to change our world. I am Dennis, the teacher of this quest for the truth and movement from thinking to questioning, to reasoning, choosing, changing, and transforming ourselves, and then transitioning to a sustainable age of reason beyond this age of ignorance. These meetings are designed to help save our world by empowering you with the knowledge, skills, and wisdom which you need to think and choose for yourself so you can heal yourself and so you can empower others to heal themselves. So together we can sow the seeds and create a happy, healthy, and sustainable future for all life on planet Earth. Let's start with introductions. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Dennis and everybody. Yes, I'm Chris Gould, and I'm coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I met Dennis through our Toastmasters Club. We've missed you, by the way. And I don't know. I'm a traveler, and I'm a teacher, a computer technology teacher, and I would sure love to see us start reversing the trends on the planet and get to a sustainable world. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Kurt, would you like to continue? Introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Kurt. I'm in Hollywood, Florida. Hi, neighbor.
Hi.
And and I attend these meetings because they do much to keep the conversation of possibility and change and renewal alive in my mind. And if it's alive in my mind, the people that I speak to get some of it as well. So keeping the conversation alive.
Excellent. Thank you, Kurt. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm here in South Africa, and I'm here to help change the conversation, sow the seeds of thought into those around me and out there in the world for a better, sustainable future.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Brendan?
I'm Brendan. I am from South Africa. I'm 25 years old. I have joined these meetings in order to help change the hearts and minds of people and from the destructive thought plane that they're on to the more nurturing and loving for the environment that they need to be on.
Thank you, Brendan. So this chapter we've been going through it now for 2 weeks, I think, and this is the third. It's chapter Violet, and it's all about the transition. When you think of the transition, what comes to mind? So can you briefly, each one of you, tell us what we are transitioning to and why? Just some brief ideas. Kurt?
Yeah, I'd say a workable, sustainable, and equitable civilization.
Excellent. Okay. Chris?
Well, I'd say the goal is to transition from just consuming all of the resources of the planet to putting some back and making it sustainable. And the obstacle is the corporations that are making money off of consuming all those resources.
Excellent. Alex?
Yes, completely agree there, Chris. So basically, we need to get back to the land into a love-based, love, balance, and harmony, sustainable future for us all from this concrete consumer-driven world that we currently live in.
Excellent. Brenda?
I would say that basically I agree with everything that you guys have said so far because they're all brilliant points. But I would say that we just need to get to a loving space for the people around us, as well as nurturing and caring about the environment around us so we can live sustainably instead of taking more than what is necessary.
Excellent, Brendan. The things that come to mind when I think about this, now, of course, I was prepared and I didn't give you, and I've got a bit longer to speak about it. So the thoughts that come to my mind are returning to the garden, returning to the land, to nature, returning to eco-villages, returning to our true nature, which is something that we're very far from, creating our happy, healthy relationships with all of life, recreating the balances of nature, returning to living as one in harmony with Gaia. And for those who don't know, Gaia is Mother Earth or Pacha Mama. Returning to the balances of the commons, regrowing utopia, Shangri-La, paradise, or ecotopia, as you said, Chris. The Garden of Eden, returning into alignment with the flow of nature and life, taking back our human rights to land, air, food, water, getting back our freedom of movement, taking back our freedom of thought, taking back our creativity and individual uniqueness, returning. I think of the Renaissance men and women with great abilities in many, many different diverse fields of thought and ideas. That's who we need to become to be adaptable in our environment. Returning to a state of live and let live. Once again, becoming a natural part of and a contribution to life and our world. Just by living our lives, we sow the seeds and create a happy, healthy, and sustainable future. Living as one with and leaving the world in a better condition than we found it in. Now, of course, I can go on and on. It really is about a total paradigm shift. The current paradigm of this age of ignorance didn't happen by accident. Now, a simplified version of what I spoke about last week is 1% of the world's population owns 29.4% of the world's wealth, and 2% owns 50%. And 50% of the world's population owns only 1%. And then we have America's 4.5% of the world's population consuming 25% of the world's resources. Now, surely this comes to mind that it didn't happen by accident. It was by design. It was planned and executed at great expense to our world and all life and many, many generations of our ancestors in the past. Our world, all life and its people are experiencing the most extreme worldwide robbery of all time, and it's getting worse. This robbery is exponentially accelerating with the use of money and technology and corporations and trade agreements and stock exchanges, wars and the threat of wars. And of course, a lot of corruption and bribery and all sorts of other things that are happening behind the scenes. The plundering of the commons for the benefit of a few at the expense of all life on planet Earth was planned and designed and executed over many hundreds and thousands of years. And it continues today, getting exponentially worse with the spreading of this way of life, this paradigm, and its indoctrination systems with the use of technology and a growing indoctrinated human population. The state of the world is the result of our collective indoctrinated societal thoughts and behaviors based on our value and belief system, which comes from our religions, education, and government-imposed paradigm, which is also spread through the media. It was designed by a few people for the benefit of those few people. Designed for the absolute accumulation and centralization of ownership, wealth, and power. It is or was based on a male-dominated system of fear of scarcity, blind beliefs, segregation, divide and rule, divide and conquer, divide and control us and them, dehumanizing, demonizing, derogatory naming, and hatred of the others whom you want to steal from. Violence, taking, warring, murdering, raping, plundering, and subjugating, all for immediate gratification, ownership, wealth, and power. It's a case of winner takes all, slash and burn, threaten, forcing, killing, bombing, destroying the lives and the property of others, driving the fearful conquered people into dependence upon the plunderer, then enslaving them to work for the owners, the robbers and murderers, and then the robbers and murderers taking ownership of the land, the resources, the minerals, and life, driving those people off the land into reservations, homelands, refugee camps, squatter camps, to create uncivilizations with poorly paid wage slavery in forced labor camps we call cities. In this and many other ways, the majority of the people of the world are controlled by the few owners of the property, wealth, and power. And the few keep control over the majority of people with fear, mind-controlling indoctrination, and domestication, which is imposed by institutionalized religions, governments, and their imposed education system. It's called an education system, but more so than anything else, underlying everything, it's an indoctrination system. It's all simply a game of monopoly and pyramid schemes designed by the few for the benefit of the few. Religions create and perpetuate the fundamental value and belief system of the paradigm, which is enforced by governments and other institutions for those in power. The system is simply designed for the monopolization of everything and forced dependence, domestication, enslavement, and control over the masses and nature for the benefit of the ruling classes. This thinking and short-term plundering is all about greed, ego, and entitlement, and being able to take whatever they want at no matter what the cost to others, life, and our world, with no perceived consequences, accountability, or even a thought of responsibility to others or our natural world for their actions, or so they thought. This is the paradigm of continuous growth pyramids. And unfortunately, continuous growth pyramids cannot go on forever because we live on a limited planet with all sorts of limitations like limited air, water, food, land, soil, topsoil, ecosystems, and balancing, replenishing systems of life and other resources. All of this and more combined with an exponentially growing population. We are racing past the tipping points, the points of no return, into more and more extreme suffering and eventual extinction. Many of the world's problems are only happening because of this imposed way of life, which is caused by the dominant paradigm. But we have become the problem because we have just unknowingly accepted this lifestyle, believed what we were taught, and not questioned it. It is time for us to take responsibility for our every thought, choice, and action and make the necessary changes to transform our lives and to transition back to the garden, to living sustainably. unfortunately for the rich, all of us and all life on earth. What we have created is unsustainable and cannot continue to happen. Like it or not, the balances of nature will be restored. The piper has to be paid. The consequences or karma for everything we do will be experienced. Irresponsible behavior and ignoring the piper doesn't solve the problems that our uncivilization is creating. We live in a cause and effect reality and universe. Whatever we do has consequences. The ignored consequences of our behavior or paradigm all just add up as a form of existential debt, which will be paid. Pay now or suffer more and more and pay later with your life or your children's lives. If this doesn't give you a sick gut feeling, I don't know what will. Don't you feel sick when you hear about wars, pollution, poisoning, starving, hungry children, poor people suffering, animals suffering, and the extinction of elephants and rhinos and many other species of life? Don't you feel some form of empathy for the homeless people existing in dead concrete jungles? Good.
Yes, I do.
Would you like to say anything about what I've said so far?
I hadn't formulated a thought when you called me out, so I'm still in the
No
process
problem.
of rolling with your. Yeah, so just to answer your question, yes, I do. What do I do about it? Um, in my small way, I live a life that I believe is fair and equitable to others and respectful of others. I reach out to my elected officials, such as they are from Florida, to tell them that they need to support certain more encompassing bills than the privileged ones that they always support. And I speak with friends who have similar concepts about, what is the right way to live. I guess my tribe, as far as diversity and equitableness. And I donate to charities that I think are promoting that type of thought.
Excellent. Chris?
Yeah, I just put in the chat a link to a movie I just watched yesterday. It's a documentary that just blew me away. And I think the word empathy is so huge. And especially in this country, I mean, there are people who live privileged lives. I'm one, and has always lived privileged lives and just have no concept of what it's like. And this film was just wonderful about three people who were doctors and went to um, South America and Africa under Rwanda, and got locals to be medical assistants, if you will, and really changed. But the things that you see in that movie are things that we never see, and somehow I think it's got to get into early education. Kids need to be need to learn how other people in the world live for them to have the empathy. And anyway, okay, that's my thought.
Love that.
And I think you are
Empathy.
trying to bend the arc. That's the title of the movie.
Hmm.
Is it
Ah,
the arc of what is it? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and it is all of our jobs to keep bending it.
wow. So cool. Alex?
Yeah, we need to get food to the masses. We need to get people taught how to reconnect with the land on a general scale, not just those without, but those with as well. To retake back the land at a nature level, and plant the trees, plant the foods, plant the driveways with food, because it's only in teaching them how to grow, it's only in growing that we will eventually solve the problem.
It's so true. You know, it's like, yeah, how do you get people to change if they've got an empty stomach? You know, it's like it's not something that's even a possibility for them. We might have that option, but they don't. And so it literally has to come from us, the haves, to start the movement to make it possible for those people to rise up. And then, of course, like Chris was saying, it really is about education. And I'm doing a lot of work at the moment, writing books and getting all of my information together. And Kurt was saying that we need to write children's books. And I think all of these things are things that we need to focus on and start to just produce, like just there was a thing this last week that I read as a Facebook post. That somebody is like, oh, we need to have these as like a return to the eco-village concept taught in universities. And because he's been traveling from one eco-village to the other, learning that way of life. And so I'm in conversation with that group. I love it. And yes, we need to create the backbone of the books and whatever. So let me carry on. This reminds me of our need for a long-term perspective and way of life, regrowing the commons, and only taking the bare minimum of what we need to live our best lives, and to continuously be contributing to creating a better world for others. Do any of you have an idea of why we need a long-term love and life-based paradigm as opposed to a short-term taking and death-based paradigm? Anyone want to answer? Good.
Because we'll use up the resources fairly quickly.
That's so true. Chris?
Yeah, I think that's it just feels obvious to me that a short-term outlook won't give us success in the long term. And I guess a short-term outlook would be something like us old folks, you know, is once again a lack of empathy for people who are going to be around a lot longer than we are.
Wow, that's so cool. Alex?
Well, basically, because we're pushing the world to the edge of extinction. We can't continue reaping or devastating the lands and taking all the resources indefinitely. It has to come to an end eventually. So yes, we need to get back to land.
Excellent. Brandon?
I would say yes, we need to get back to land, like Alex said. Yeah, practically, I'm going to piggyback off what Alex said now, because it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so people need to get back to land, whilst there will be nothing left to get back to, you know, and there will be no such thing as survival.
I think what's so important about that idea is it's not just getting back to the land to take from the land. It's getting back to the land to be a contribution to life on the land. Anyone else?
I think that's a very true statement, actually.
Yeah. What I come up with is I think of like cash crops, you know. Farmers are like in there because they know they can sell tomatoes or whatever, and it's like in for the season, make their money and plow the land and It's sow, and it's just like production and yields and profits. And that's the way of thinking of the whole paradigm. But then I think of the opposite of that, which is companion planting, which Alex and I like really love, because it comes from, you know, a lot of the ideas come from ancient sort of tribes and indigenous cultures and so on. So permaculture guilds and food forests, which is basically a whole lot of plants and things all working together to create a sustainable future, creating ecosystems. While seasonal crops or cash crops are necessary in the short term to feed us, long-term growth is essential for sustainability, holding onto the dirt and creating more topsoil, and healthy ecosystems growth, reforestation, habitat growth, labor reduction, food and water security, long-term abundance, and reversing global warming, and planetary life survival. Also for feeding a growing population. I think of marauding tribes of people just like running across the land and eating whatever cash crops and animals you have or whatever. And then how do you survive that? Well, if you have a sustainable food forest, they'll take what they can eat, but then move on, you know, and you still have food for the future. However, it does take time, design, costs, energy, and effort and money to grow for the long term without having an immediate return or gratification. You just have to trust in nature, hope and have faith that it works, hoping for long-term survival of the trees, hoping for an expected annual or biannual abundant bounty of food and seeds for all, which could begin to happen as soon as 7 years from planting to 14 years to produce the abundance, which will happen for many years into the future. Once you start to get oranges or apples or whatever it is that you're producing, that will happen for many years into the future. So that's where you save labor. You're not planting every year, you're not plowing, you're not destroying the soil, you're building the soil. Splicing is a method that they use in tree planting and food production as well, which can accelerate your production and yields and so on. Some benefits are only having to reap, no annual plowing, planting, and regrowing. So it is a lot less labor intensive. All you have to do is go and pick. Growing biodiverse food forest in complex understories and complex diverse ecosystems is another way I see this happening. Our survival depends on the complexity, cooperation, and relationships between perceived aspects of the whole. The flow is about the whole dance, not just about individual beings. Investing in the long-term future instead of short-term future is priceless. Then to only take what you need to ensure the perpetuation of life in our world. This view or perspective is fundamentally important and, of course, the way of life for us to survive and thrive into the future. Our survival depends on us taking personal and worldwide responsibility for ourselves, our thoughts, our choices, actions, and way of life, our children, all life, and our living planet, Mother Earth, who gives and sustains our lives. Ensuring the sustainability of life requires that we care for others and our world way beyond ourselves. Although without self-care, there is no caring for others. Alex, would you like to talk about that? Would anyone like to talk about that? Oh, sorry, there you go, Alex.
Yeah, no, I think I'll skip in terms of the self-care because I haven't really been doing much of the self-care myself lately.
But it's come home, hasn't it? You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I really have not been paying attention. So this realignment with yourself and self-care it's something that it cannot be ignored. It's just like we cannot ignore looking after our planet. We cannot ignore looking after ourselves. It's like fundamental to our existence.
Absolutely.
Planting, grazing, and growth throughout the growth cycle to bearing fruit, nuts, seeds requires time, patience, care, and commitment to seeing it through. However, these are important like factors in the journey. Is if we consume faster than you regrow, you become extinct. If you destroy faster than you create, you will not survive. If you depend upon monoculture, agribusiness, technology, plying, fertilizers, poisons, herbicides, pesticides, neonicotinoids, you will not survive because you will destroy the soil, deforest the land, and lose your topsoil, and you will create a desert and you will not produce food, so you will die. I mean, we cannot depend upon this cash crop monoculture type way of thinking. If you design, develop, and grow based on sustainable water and food security and biodiversity, you will survive most situations. Learning from nature, this is such an important thing, and adapting to working with nature to enhance it is far more productive than fighting against it. Observing and learning, we see that if we use planned grazing and introduce predators or introduce predators into huge moving grazing herds, we will keep the herbivores moving. Thus, of course, they won't overgraze. They'll fertilize the land, spread the seeds, and create good, healthy growth for the next time they pass by. Thus, we ensure sustainability. Instead of quick fixes like burning, like we do, like right across Africa, the herders burn the grasslands and by doing so, they create like these bigger long-term environmental problems. And of course, global warming is accelerated by this. Observing the historical loss of megafauna, we can take the long gestation period versus our excessively simple and fast rate of killing and consumption. Observing and studying them, we can see that we must protect them from unthinking, immediate gratification, commercial hunters and their ignorance, protecting them from money and business, and nurture them if they are to survive. And their survival is linked to ours. Not everything is black and white or geometrical absolutism, oversimplification. Nature is round and varying and moving and changing, vibrating, cyclical, and nuances and shades and tones and colors and complexity. We have to learn to be one with the dance, the symphony, the music, the rhythms, the vibrations, the flows of the nuances of life, the microclimates within the macroclimate, adaptable, changing, thinking, seeing, learning our place in Pacha Mama, or living Mother Earth. So to me, going back to the garden is about living in alignment with and in love, balance, and harmony with the flow of nature and life, moving and living as one with the complex symphony of motion we call life, existence, and nature. What does anyone else say in relation to this transition back to garden? Can anyone tell me what they think the flow is and why it's important to transition and align ourselves with it? You can speak of, spend some time on it.
It reminds me of my studying of Taoism. The Tao says it makes a lot of analogies to water. And if you want to be successful in life, you need to go with the flow of the water. And it doesn't mean just sitting on your butt and letting things happen to you. It means that to make progress, you go in the direction that the river is going. You don't try to swim upstream, like you say, the burning of the fields and the grasslands. It also makes the analogy to water, and I think this supports your thought, is that You need to trust the stuff that you're in. It's not that water likes you and wants to hold you up. You float because water is you. You know, the Mother Nature is us. Trust the stuff you're in and go with it, not against it.
I love that. Good.
No, I have no comment at the moment.
Oh, um, I'm actually surprised because we've had a huge discussion on the flow, but in previous meetings, but this is maybe a particular look at it or bias or whatever in relation to us returning to alignment with Mother Nature. Alex?
I think Chris's analogy there of being the water instead of the water being or with us, I think was just perfect.
Yeah. It actually, that whole concept, if you take it further, Chris, we are the air, we are the energy, we are the land, we are the water, we are the temperatures, the pressure, we are of this world and this living, flowing planet, like happening. How did we end up thinking that we were separate from and above it, and that we can master and control it, you know, to that extent that we destroy it? Brennan?
Like Kurt, I will sit this one out.
Okay, no problem. We've got about 20 minutes, so I'm just going to try and dive into this one because I really love this idea. Things that come to mind regarding flow and the transition back to the garden are things like perpetuating life, growing relationships, becoming one with the living ecosystems, the seasons, the cycles, change. Everything, the energy flows that compose Mother Nature, all moving and flowing together as one. Life-giving and sustaining ecological systems, the combination of complex energy that composes everything that is happening in our reality is a symphony of vibrations, motion, changes, and flow. We are internally moving, changing, vibrating, flowing, living complex, changing ecosystems that are essentially part of the greater ecosystem we call Mother Nature. We are the air, the water, the earth, the food, the energy, the temperature and pressure, the relationships within the ecosystems. And we are part of the ecosystems. And what we think, say, and do, and what we think and say is creating our future. If we don't get that right, that's the future we're creating for our planet and for our children. We have no choice but to take responsibility for our lives and transition to a sustainable paradigm, way of thinking and living our lives. Firstly, we must understand and know that we are complex expressions of movement, of that flow of Mother Nature and life. We come from it, are it, and are constantly being composed of it by living in it and by being in alignment with it. We are processes of the flow of life, which is composed of air, water, earth, energy, food, life. Without living, changing Gaia, we don't exist. We are the flow within it, just like your analogy of the water, Chris. So if we're not living in alignment, balancing and living in harmony with it, we're naturally fading out of it and out of existence. We are either one with the flow of Mother Nature and life, or we fade out of existence. This is a fundamental principle of nature and life. Try stopping, breathing, stop drinking water, stop eating, stop maintaining your balance within that ecological system. This brings me to the importance of transitioning from our natural balances and lack of alignment back into alignment with life, nature, and the garden. We will all learn at some stage that we naturally fall in and out of balance and harmony and alignment with that flow, and that it's up to us to choose to constantly correct or suffer more and more. So we need to be aware of its fundamental importance to be constantly trying to return to alignment with that flow, to ensure we are living healthy, happy lives in relationship to it, in love, balance, and harmony with it. By constantly returning into alignment, we perpetuate that process and flow and life itself because we are part of it and essential components of it. We are life as life is us. We are our living world's life spreaders, nurturers, fertilizers, seed carriers, and sowers of the seeds of life and thought, all living to ensure that life goes on and we create a better future and life expands and grows. If we keep realigning with nature and life top of mind as our fundamental goal, we will naturally survive and thrive. We should realize by now that maintaining perfect alignment is impossible, just as perfection is impossible. We are forever falling out of balance and creating and experiencing imbalances, which hopefully we learn and grow stronger from. We also know that falling out of alignment and making mistakes, falling down, getting up, brushing ourselves off, and trying again is the fundamental nature of our life's lessons. Every mistake or life's journey is an opportunity to learn and grow and prepare us for serving others. When these events happen, we are constantly reminded to return to love, balance, and harmony and alignment with that flow. We might feel it, oh, I'm thirsty. Intuitive sense it as intuitive knowingness or foreboding. Fear, hair standing up on our neck. We might even say to ourselves, there's something wrong, even if we cannot explain it or put our finger on it. As we travel on our thought journeys, and as we become aware, conscious, and wise, we are more inclined to immediately see the imbalances and wrongdoing all around us and become empowered to think and do something about it. Often in life, we tend to ignore this knowingness. And when we do so, eventually we pay the price. Overindulgence, excess, enough is enough. Not living in the balances of your bodily health, your mental health, and essential energy sometimes costs you dearly. If you leave it and leave it and leave it, it's that accumulation of debt. You have to be constantly correcting, or it might and take your life, or it might take many lifetimes for you to learn these fundamental premises. In some rare cases, our guides and protectors will intervene, connect, and communicate with us through our intuition, thoughts, aha moments, enhanced intuitive knowings. Or really, they will talk to us in our heads, telling us to change our behavior because our lives are in danger. Do or die intervention. When you hear those warning signs, it's wise to take them seriously and do exactly what you're told to do. I was saved by a bomb blast, by a voice in my head saying, don't go that way. The fascinating principle is that falling out of alignment and making our way back into alignment makes us stronger and more determined to return into relationship with it. Think of when you were your healthiest, fittest, and happiest as a child. You just lived that way of life naturally. You naturally lived in love, balance, and harmony, and with the flow. And of course, when you're very young, your mother makes sure you get exactly the amount of food and water and everything you need, and is constantly teaching you those balances, living with the flow of the natural wisdom of life and nature, you do it without question. People experiencing and surviving near-death experiences are forever changed beings because of the clarity of their instantaneous knowingness and the understanding while out of their body. They return to life and they naturally go on their personal quest for the truth, change, and transformation, searching for that childlike natural wisdom within them, returning to the journey back to themselves, their center of alignment with that flow, back to the light of natural wisdom and the magical flow of life. I'm going to stop there. Anyone
That's
like to?
wonderful.
Yeah, it goes on, but I can't do this to you. Anyone? Alex?
No, I think that what you said was wonderful. I mean, being that childlike person, and being one with your environment, one with nature, one with the people around you, with no fear, no inhibitions, and just out exploring. And your favorite toy is a stick and a stone, and I mean, that's just ultimate happiness, is it not?
I think so. That's magical. Kurt?
I visited a friend's property yesterday. He lives on the western side of Florida in the Everglades, but still near Immokalee, if you know where that is. And he moved his family out there just about 3 or 4 months ago and got about 10 acres of land. And yesterday was I guess the opening of the land to others. And the whole point that he's invested in it is to be able to live that life again, of getting back to Mother Nature, of being in touch with the land on a constant basis, of not only sharing it with his family, but the invitation is, this is our land. This is a place for you to come and participate and share and meditate and do whatever you want to do. It's not something that we own. I should say he's also, I don't know what part, Native American, and he's been really into getting back to his roots and his ancestry. And one of the most spiritual people I know in that respect. And it just reminds me that even though we have these wonderful conversations and talks, and certainly Alex and Brendan and you are involved in actually creating the sustainable villages, that's what he's looking to do in his own small way. So I'm just reminded that there is hope, and we just need to choose it and then go after it, and people will follow or not. And we still get to follow the dream of what's possible in this wonderful paradise that we live in.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. That's just that idea. I mean, if everyone basically sold up their city dwellings and they basically all created communal eco-villages, like buying large areas of land, well, we could live in a very different world very quickly. Chris?
Yeah, I just so agree with everything you've said. But the tough part is how to get there. I mean, even, I see it needs to be a societal change and a corporate change and all that, but even at just the personal level. So I decided I wanted to grow my own, just herbs. That's it. Basically basil. Rather than buying basil, I got a little garden thing, and they're dead. I can't even do that simplest little thing of trying to get back to nature. I need systemic help. I need systemic change, and
Wow.
that's tough.
But
You
Chris,
know
that's
what?
the interesting thing is, like, when I first started planting plants and stuff, you said your basil died. So that's what brings me to this conclusion. When I first started planting plants, I was very young. We're talking about 7, 8 years old. And it just, you learn what your soil needs, and I'm not talking about herbicides and pesticides because that you never use that stuff on your plants, because that will cause later problems in your soil and stuff. But you just get to find what nutrients each plant needs and basically guide them in their own grow patches in terms of that nutrients. Yeah, so it just takes practice and trying to figure out what the next step would be.
I think that's
Wow.
the observation of what happens and why, and then finding out why it happens, the observation of nature. Alex, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I just want to say two things. Chris, planting might just not be your thing.
I think that's
But you might be exceptional at something else. So I'm not going to push you to plant, but just from my observation in my garden, I've had endless problems trying to grow tomato plants. I put a seed in the soil and it does. Or I might get one or two tomatoes off it and it does. So, but I can plant a tomato plant in a pot and it survives quite well. So it's obviously my soil in my garden. And so I've tried a few different things, like Brendan said, try chucking in a few different herbal plants to see if you can't try and get um, the soil enrichment right, and maybe it's the bugs and all that. And I'm still not having any luck with it. Okay, I'm still on the process of trying and testing and going through that process. But because I just love having my hands in the soil, I just love planting. So I'm willing to try whatever it takes until I get like that possible goal. And I was just chatting to Dad today, and it was maybe the seeds that we are using are GMO seeds. They're One Life seeds. They already come, we've already had the fruit from them. So now we're chucking the seeds back into the garden. So they're not going to grow no matter how hard you try. So that is also a very, very good possibility. So I've recently bought some organic heirloom seeds online, and I'm going to give that a shot and see if that helps.
I think the secret here is trial and error. Don't give up and don't think that you don't have green fingers because one plant doesn't work. That's nonsense. It's like, do you know how prolifically the pesticides and herbicides are promoted and sold around the world? I mean, there's a guy across here, he's building a deck and he pulls out this herbicide and he starts to spray for the weeds underneath his deck. And I'm like, what are you doing? And, if you want to remove the weeds, like, why don't you just pull them out, But that poison goes into the ravine or into the catchment dam, and then it kills the fish and it kills all the microorganisms and whatever that the fish would eat. And so you could actually have a situation where somebody has put weed killer, it's at some stage in your garden, and that weed killer could be what is killing your basil. Just try all different things. It's by experimentation that you learn, okay, nature likes this, and maybe it needs to be in more sunlight or less sunlight, or what is the microclimate in that area? What are the pests? What are the bugs? And blah, 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 blah. Companion planting, putting different plants together. The one acts as a protection to the other or provides the nutrients that the other one needs. And, there's soil experimentation that you can do. There's so much. It's like a wonderful world. It's like stepping into nature and then learning to become one with it and to grow is a huge journey. That's one of our biggest transition factors. Okay.
I'll keep
It's
trying.
really learning how to connect and see and develop and work around all these magnificent, beautiful areas that we've got and what's capable and what's not. And you know what? I might not be able to grow tomatoes, but I'm growing really great strawberries. So
Okay.
And pumpkin, yes, butternut actually, yeah.
Oh, butternut's growing really well.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's like this. It's a whole world of fun and creativity. We have now got to exactly an hour after our starting time, so we can continue talking if you want to about anything. But for those of you who want to leave, we can call it the end of the meeting. All right. Anybody want to leave? You're welcome to do so.
Great. Thank you,
I'm gonna
guys.
leave because I'm really hungry.
All right. Cool.
Thank you
Cool.
so
Yeah,
much,
All right,
guys.
Kurt. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Bye,
folks.
Bye,
Brendan.
Good to
Chris.
meet you.
Bye, Chris. Thanks for joining.